All right. What's up, college football fans? Welcome to our first live show for QB Spotlight. If this is your first time tuning in, thank you as always. I'm still not even sure how this really exactly works, but I'll be looking at these comments and see what's going on. But anyways, this is our first live show that we're doing, and we're going to start doing 2 live shows per week. Just doing a recap video of the prior games, then we're going to have a preview video of the games, specifically talking about the quarterback position. So again, this is your first time tuning in. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. We put out quarterback content on a weekly basis, and we have a lot of current and former quarterbacks on the show, on the podcast, as well as coaches, current and former coaches and players that come on and give their analysis of certain things, right? So today we're going to talk about a few different topics, right? We're going to talk about some current new starters being named at the college football position. We're also going to talk about some week 0 previews and then some other quarterback storylines to watch. I think we're doing this right. If y'all have a question or anything, please post a comment below. I think, again, this is our first time doing this, so I think we got this going. But we're going to start talking about first Connor Beck, the Georgia Target. I'm sorry. Excuse me, Carson Beck. Excuse me. Look at me. First live show already screwing up. Carson Beck. So real quick, let's talk about. Were we surprised with it? No, right? I think if you watched the spring game and if you kept up with what Kirby Smart and everything was going on with the program, this isn't really a surprise. Now it's just official, right? So I think the biggest things when talking about Carson Beck is, what are the expectations now? What are the expectations for Carson Beck being the starting quarterback for Georgia this year? Devin, nice. How about Devin at UK? Yeah, we'll touch on him for sure. Thanks for tuning in, David. And real quick, sorry to go off track from Carson Beck, but Devin Leary is actually one of my favorite quarterbacks in the SEC. I think he has a chance to be the best quarterback in the SEC if he gets back to 2021 version, if you will. But back to Carson Beck, right? Not a surprise. Now it's official. What do we expect? I think if you're a Georgia fan or if you're an SEC fan, I think you expect him to be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC again this year. I don't think that's too far-fetched, right? I think it's realistic for Georgia to have one of the best quarterbacks again this year with the players they have around him. You know what I mean? With the players that they're going to have supporting Carson Beck. And, he did get some playing time last year, saw some live bullets. It wasn't against – it wasn't in like real intense situations, but he saw some live bullets and he's a super high recruit, right? You're going to see the ball jump out of his hands a little bit different than Stetson Bennett. He may not be the athlete that Bennett is, but I think he can use his legs enough when need be. And I think it helps that Georgia has an easier schedule, at least, especially starting off, right? I think they got UT Martin, Ball State, and UAB are 3 out of their first 4 teams they play. I think their other team in that 4-game condensed schedule is South Carolina. And so it's not a super grueling schedule, right? So Carson Beck has time to develop, time to get his feet wet. And I think if you're a Georgia fan, you expect him to be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. You expect him to lead you to an SEC championship, and you expect him to lead you to the playoffs. So with that said, Carson Beck, nothing really surprised about that announcement. It's official now. And now I think you expect the exact same kind of performance, maybe not the exact same, because I think Stetson Bennett did a hell of a job, but you expect a performance similar to kind of how Bennett led the team to the SEC championship. You expect Beck to be able to do that. All right, let's go on to another quarterback. Again, if y'all like this quarterback stuff, like, subscribe. We talk about all quarterbacks on a weekly basis. If you have any thoughts on Carson Beck or any other quarterbacks that we don't touch today, let us know in the comments below. We already have David talking to us about Devin Leary at UK. Again, a quarterback I like a lot. So let's talk about DJU, right? The transfer from Clemson who just transferred to Oregon State this offseason. He's now been officially named the starting quarterback. While it's not necessarily a surprise that he's been named the starting quarterback, and especially if you are kind of on the outside looking in and don't keep up with much Oregon State football, then I don't think it's a super big surprise that he was named the starting or that if he was named the starting quarterback, excuse me. But if you kind of kept up with the competition, or if you're a Pac-12 Oregon State fan, I think you know how high Oregon State is on their freshman quarterback, Aiden Childs, right? He came in. He's a guy who really came on the scene at the end of his recruitment last year, and he's a really talented quarterback, right? So his name was in the mix. And, of course, they had their starting quarterback from last year, Ben Gulbranson. He did some nice things as well, right? I mean, the team went 10-3 and they beat Oregon last year with Gulbranson at the quarterback position the majority of the time. So, he did some things well. For me, what do I expect? Well, I think there's a few things with DJU. I think the upside and potential is still there. That hasn't gone anywhere, right? DJU has the upside. He has the potential. I think now it's just the development side of things. And I kind of expect Jonathan Smith to get the best out of him. And as far as the QB room goes, I think they're in a set good position. One of the most underrated quarterback rooms maybe in the nation, with those two other guys behind DJU, like we mentioned. But again, I expect Jonathan Smith to get the most out of him. They start with San Jose State, UC Davis, San Diego State, and then Washington State. So their first Power 5 game is week 4. So they don't have a grueling schedule, but those Mountain West teams that we named are no slouches by any means, right? San Jose State has a good quarterback coming back, Cordero, who, if you haven't watched play, I would recommend watching him. And then, of course, San Diego State beats Pac-12 teams all the time, right? So I think DJU has the potential and upside still. I think Jonathan Smith can get the best out of him, and they have a relatively good schedule to get that going, but no slouches by any means, right? So with that said, let's move on to Payton Thorne. Excuse me, let me get a quick sip of water. Again, if this is your first time tuning in, we talk quarterbacks all the time. This is our first live show that we are doing. All right, Payton Thorne. Just named the starting quarterback at Auburn sometime the past few days in this past week, and I don't think it's necessarily a surprise, right? I think you kind of expected it. I don't think he would have transferred from Michigan State if he wasn't pretty sure he was going to get the job at Auburn. But I do think it was a true competition, right? I do think it's fair to say, hey, Robbie Ashford maybe fits Hugh Freeze's offense a little bit better, for the simple fact Ashford is a better athlete. Ashford can run better than Payton Thorne, right? He's dangerous with his legs, right? But with that said, Thorne's the guy. They named Thorne. He's a starting quarterback moving forward. And I actually like Payton Thorne. I think he got a lot more criticism than he probably deserved, like most quarterbacks do when they don't have a great season. But if you look back at this 2021 season, he did set the Michigan State single touchdown passing record, right? 27 touchdowns. His yards per attempt, this was the biggest thing for me with Payton Thorne. His yards per attempt were at 8.4, 8.3. I have it down somewhere, blah, 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 blah. Yep, 8.3 in 2021. In 2022 was 6.9, right? So he just wasn't pushing the ball downfield. It's a pretty, 1.5 yards is a pretty decent size variance, even though it might not seem like much. So I think with Payton Thorne, the ability is there. I think he's going to a quarterback-friendly offense with Hugh Freeze. And I expect him to get back to 2021 version, right? I think Auburn's a much better team than probably given credit for. So again, if you are an Auburn fan, I think you are excited by this for a simple fact. I think the ball is going to be pushed downfield a bit more than what you saw last year. And you start off with a pretty easy schedule, right? You got UMass, then you got Cal, and you got Samford. You have Texas A&M in week 4. So you have those 3 games. I know Cal's a Power 5, but you still have those 3 games to get Thorne feeling in a comfortable position, right? So with that said, Payton Thorne, offense, QB-friendly offense, ability to push the ball downfield. He can use his legs more than probably given credit for, so I think he's still able to be a threat in some regards of that Hugh Freeze offense when it comes to the quarterback running the ball. But I think he's a starting quarterback for the simple fact he's going to be able to push the ball downfield, spread open the offense a little bit more. And then, hey, you still have Ashford if need be, right? So I think they're in a good position. Freeze as a play caller, and 2 quarterbacks with a lot of experience, Payton Thorne being the guy. All right, so let's move on to Jaden Rashada, the Arizona State quarterback who just got named the starting quarterback, yesterday, I believe, depending when you're watching this video. And this was my most surprising one. I was expecting it to be Drew Pine, right? Pine got hurt his hamstring, about a week and a half ago. So that probably played a role. I don't know how severe the hamstring is. Hopefully he's back soon. But regardless, Jaden Rashada is named the guy. And even though I wasn't expecting him to be named right off the bat, I'm not necessarily surprised. I just thought it would be later on the season. Like, I expected him to start at some point this season. I just didn't think it would be right off the bat, considering the 2 guys that they have with Drew Pine, who we already talked about, who hurt his hamstring. Even though Pine was up and down at Notre Dame last year, he still finished the season fairly good, right? 22 touchdowns, 6 picks, and saw a bunch of live bullets. Same thing with Trenton Bourguet, right? He saw a bunch of live bullets last year as well. Started the second half of the season, 11 TDs, 6 picks. He was big in their win over Washington, right? So we saw some not just live bullets, but some big-time games, right? He had 3 touchdowns in that game against Washington. So I was expecting, whether it was Pine or Bourguet, I was expecting one of them to at least start. But the fact that Jaden Rashada is the guy right now moving forward, I think it says a lot. I think it says he's probably been playing pretty well. The potential that is obviously there, and he has a much higher ceiling most likely, right? So when you have a new coach coming in, you have a quarterback with a high ceiling. all the potential in the world. Now it's just getting Rashada comfortable. Now it's just getting him experience. They open up at Southern Utah, right? That's good. Open up Southern Utah, get comfy, because right after that, they actually have a pretty hard schedule. Starting off, because they got Oklahoma State after Southern Utah. Then they got Fresno State, who is no slouch from the Mountain West, and then you got USC. So those 3 games are all pretty hard games for a true freshman quarterback, right? So it's good to have Southern Utah to get your feet wet, and then it kind of gets right into the fire against this tough competition. But Jaden Rashada, all the potential in the world, high ceiling, and so I guess they just kind of went with the potential factor over the 2 guys that had experience. Now, no, Pine was hurt. Maybe he's able to come back and hopefully gets back healthier and can contribute to that position somehow. But as of now, it looks like they're going with Jaden Rashada. All right, let's get going. Hey, what's up, Sonoy, my guy? Tuning in. UNT. Hey, we're gonna talk some UNT quarterbacks. I promise, man. All right, we'll keep going. All right, so we're going to talk about one more starting quarterback who's just been named recently, and then we have a few other guys we're going to hit on quickly. So we're going to talk about Haynes King from Georgia Tech, the transfer from Texas A&M, just been named the starting quarterback at Georgia Tech. And this one was admittedly a competition I didn't follow very, very closely. I just assumed King would win, right? I just assumed, okay, King's going to be the guy. But diving into it a bit more, if you were a Tech fan or if you kept up with more ACC football, a lot of people thought Pyron would win. A lot of people thought he was maybe the guy moving forward, that he showed enough last year. He showed enough potential last year where they wanted to give him the reins. But with that said, it is Haynes King as the starting quarterback, being named the starting quarterback for Georgia Tech. And Pyron's a stud, showed some things, and I think he still has a bright future. But Haynes King, head coach Brent Key came out and said, I'm not putting King on a short leash, right? They start with Louisville. So even if King struggles, even if he has some picks, even if he has some accuracy issues, he's going to let him work through that, right? So I think that's a good thing. If you're a quarterback, you can play a lot looser that way. And Haynes King, he was a big recruit out of Texas, I believe Longview, Texas, and we're here from Texas. So that's a good football area. And things just didn't work out at A&M for that reason. The biggest thing was just the consistency factor from King. There were a few things that derailed, the ability to be consistent. Injuries was a main factor, being injured the past few years. Even though he was the starter, 2 years ago he was named the starter. He got a lot of playing time last year. So injuries were a factor for him, and it was hard to be consistent, right? But even when he was playing, even when we had some, consistent exposure, he didn't show what he was completely capable of doing, right? He has 9 passing touchdowns and 9 interceptions his whole career. He has a completion percentage under 60. So he has had some decent playing time. He just hasn't been consistent with it. But I think a new change of scenery. I think if he can stay healthy and be more consistent, playing and get more live exposure, then I think the potential is still there for Haynes King. Even though Pyron showed good things, I think the consistency factor can help with King moving forward at Georgia Tech. Again, they start with Louisville, so the test is right off the bat. You got to rock and roll with Louisville. So if you're a Georgia Tech fan, you'd hope King shows well, plays well, and keeps you in that game. So again, these were the top 5 quarterbacks who I think have been named the starting quarterback recently, the last week or so that we went over. If there may be some other quarterbacks being named that we haven't gone over. So if that's the case, we miss them, let us know in the comments. But there's a few other quarterbacks who have been named as a starting quarterback at some smaller schools who I do want to talk about. All right, number 1, FAU quarterback Casey Thompson, the former Texas quarterback, former Nebraska quarterback, and now at FAU. Not a big surprise there. He was the expected starter. Came in, he's officially been named the starting quarterback. He could be one of the top quarterbacks in the whole group of 5 when it's all said and done. Also, North Texas quarterback Stone Earl has been named the starting quarterback as well. Shout out to my guy Sonoy tuning in. The UNT fan, Mean Green Show. But yeah, Stone Earl has been named the starting quarterback against Cal. With that said, there's a little asterisk in my mind, at least. Chandler Rogers, a transfer quarterback from ULM, is going to get playing time against Cal. I'm not entirely sure what that looks like. Who knows who ends up being the starter long term, but at least starting the season, you have Stone Earl. He's a transfer from Abilene Christian. He started there in 2021, right? So he's seen live bullets, and now he gets to make his start for North Texas. Southern Miss, they have named Billy Wiles as their starting quarterback. He was a Clemson transfer, now playing for Will Hall at Southern Miss. Southern Miss is a team who I think is waiting to get back to one of those top group of 5 rankings, if you will. And I think Billy Wiles can be a surprise quarterback and lead Southern Miss to that, right? So again, just a few other quarterbacks who've been named the starting quarterback as of late. And if there's anyone I missed, I know we only got a few people watching, but if there's anyone I missed, just let me know. And again, this will be up on our page, I believe, and I'll put it on a podcast version as well, so you can comment and tune in there too. So, with that said, let's keep diving in. Okay, week 0 talk. We're gonna get to that here in a second. Before we get to week 0, let's talk about a few other quarterback topics who I think is worth keeping track of during the season. I think the two biggest ones stand out to me. Number 1, Ohio State quarterbacks. Number 2, Alabama quarterbacks. Right, two of the most, if not the most premier college football teams are looking for a new quarterback, right? And Ohio State hasn't named their quarterback yet with Kyle McCord and Devin Brown. So regardless who wins that position, I've said this before, I'm under the impression that they're going to have some good success. I'm under the impression that Ryan Day is going to be able to put whoever wins in a good position, right? Now, I think if you're a fan, you're kind of wondering, like, why hasn't Kyle McCord been named the starting quarterback, right? He's gotten some decent playing time as a backup the past few years. He's waited his turn. Is he not showing what he needs to show? Is Devin Brown really keeping this that close? Or is Kyle McCord playing really good football and Devin Brown is just playing just as good? Is Devin Brown really making it that close, right? So I think there's a few different areas to look at or reasons to look at why a quarterback hasn't been named yet, right? So with that said, I've kind of got no idea who wins this thing. I always thought it was going to be Kyle McCord. I thought he was going to be named by now, but that's not the case. So it tells me that it's much closer than I thought. And maybe if Devin Brown didn't get hurt in spring ball, maybe he's the guy right now, right? So I think it comes down to either McCord isn't playing where they want him to, or Devin Brown's making it so close that they just can't name anyone the starting quarterback yet, right? So again, we'll be keeping track of this. It's going to be a fun quarterback storyline the entire season, I think, because these two guys are so talented, and I think it's they could name a starter right now, but the week 1 is coming up, and we'll touch on that whenever week 1 approaches. Another one, the Alabama quarterback situation. Literally just like 10, 15 minutes ago before we went live, there was a quote by Nick Saban that was tweeted out talking about, there's been some movement in the quarterback competition, right? There's been some steps forward, for lack of better terms. I'm not using the exact quote, but it seems like maybe someone's pulling away. He didn't say who, but if you're an Alabama fan, prior to those quotes and even after the quotes, no one's probably taken that next step forward, right, as of now, right? So that tells you that guys are probably being inconsistent at times, and no one's just snatched that position. So I think it's going to be an interesting position to watch the entire season, just for the simple fact it's Alabama. There's a new quarterback, and there's 3 guys competing for him. If you look back at the history of Nick Saban and breaking in new quarterbacks, typically it turns out to be okay, right? Even if they don't have a starting quarterback, named at the first of the season. I think that was part of the quote that we just saw was they don't anticipate to have a true starting quarterback until entering week 2. So I bet we see a few guys, 2 or 3 guys for week 1 with Alabama. But regardless, it's a quarterback story topic line to follow. So we'll keep an eye on that. Then one more quick topic to touch on for quarterback topics I think are kind of interesting is the Pac-12 quarterbacks. I know all the talk from the Pac-12 as of late has been the realignment issues. Is the Pac-12 going to fold? Are they going to the ACC, Mountain West, American? Who the hell knows? That's not really something I keep up with. But as far as quarterback play goes, I think the Pac-12 arguably could have the best top tier or the tier 1 of quarterbacks in college football. A few different reasons why. But I think it's an interesting storyline to follow where, hey, this is the last true year of the Pac-12, and they might be going out in a bang with the best quarterback play in college football, right? Of course, you got Caleb Williams, the returning Heisman, right? But you also got Bo Nix from Oregon coming back. You got Michael Penix from Washington. When Cam Rising, I'm assuming he's healthy this season, but whenever he's back, whether it's week 1 or after, you got Cam Rising, Utah, and then you got Washington State quarterback Cam Ward, who had a good season last year and expects to have a good season this year, right? Those are all returning guys. Then you want to add in Shedeur Sanders from Colorado, who's got a ton of hype, and he very well could be one of the top quarterbacks in the Pac-12, depending how he does and how the team does. But there's a lot of talent there. I wouldn't write him off, right? He probably going to be in the top few. So you got 5 or 6 quarterbacks that could be considered some tier 1 guys, at least in the conference. And when you compare them to, the Big Ten, they got J.J. McCarthy. They got the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten East has Big Ten East, Big Ten West. I forget who, but like the majority of all their schools are transfer quarterbacks who are starting, right? SEC, they got, Jaden Daniels and Devin Leary, who we mentioned earlier, Will Rogers, KJ Jefferson, Spencer Rattler. But, they have a lot of new quarterbacks starting as well, from the Alabama guys to Florida to Georgia to Tennessee, even with Joe Milton, right? And the Big 12 has a lot of turnover as well. And they didn't have like superb quarterback play last year anyways, the Big 12. So I think the Pac-12 has the best quarterbacks entering the 2023 college football season, or at least they have the top tier quarterbacks, right? So I think it's an interesting storyline to follow, see how these guys do. If you're a fan of a different conference, maybe at the end of the year, maybe the SEC or the ACC, they have better overall quarterback play, right? The ACC, of course, with Drake May and Jordan Travis and a lot of good guys, Riley Leonard from Duke and Tyler Van Dyke. And there's some underrated guys in the ACC who I think are, could probably take that top tier status, if you will. But I think it's an interesting storyline with the Pac-12. And I think that, good for them, good for them to have these top quarterbacks their last official year as a conference, if you will, right? So again, I know the Pac-12's talked about realignment a lot, but I think in this case, they have the top tier quarterbacks in all of college football entering the season. We'll see if that's the case at the end of the season, but something to keep track of, right? With that said, let's go ahead and dive into the last topic I want to talk about. Again, if you like this type of quarterback content, please consider subscribing to the videos, like all that stuff. I know we have four watchers right now, whatever, viewers. But again, this is our first live show. We want to do this 2 times a week. We're going to have a video where we recap the quarterbacks, and then we're going to have a video where we preview the quarterbacks. And we're going to have, special guests on throughout the year, right? We're still going to keep our podcast, but we'll have guys helping break us down film from current and former quarterbacks. So with that said, let's get some week 0 talk. We'll hit this quickly because there's not a lot of big games, but still some interesting games I want to touch on. So Notre Dame and Navy, let's touch on that. Just with Sam Hartman, right? I'm not sure what the spread is. I think Notre Dame was like by 20 or something like that last time I looked at. It shouldn't be a close game, right? But with Sam Hartman, it's his first time starting for Notre Dame, and Navy's going to want to try to control the clock, and Navy's probably going to control the clock. So Sam Hartman may not have a ton of opportunities to score. So if you are watching Hartman, you want to watch for efficiency. Can you be efficient? If you have 3 possessions in the first half, can you score touchdowns in all of them, right? It's a realistic possession number when you're playing a triple option team like Navy. So I think be efficient if you're Sam Hartman. Take what the defense gives you, and you should be able to drive down the field. Again, guys, if you're watching, if you have any questions or want me to touch on any other quarterback or any quarterback topics, just let us know in the comments below. I think I'm getting comments coming in. So again, first time doing this, so we are a work in progress. All right, next game I want to touch, our next quarterback I want to talk about is Curtis Warwick for Ohio. They are playing San Diego State. If you haven't watched Warwick play, he's one of the best quarterbacks in all of Group of 5. His brother was one of the best quarterbacks at Ohio, playing the CFL. Now he's trying to make, I forget what team he's trying to make, but he's on an NFL team in the preseason right now. But Curtis Warwick, the MAC Offensive Player of the Year, he's returning. A dual threat guy who can run, throw, do anything that's asked for him. Fun quarterback to watch. And so for all the quarterbacks being played this week, besides all the Group of 5 quarterbacks at least, he's probably the guy to check out, right? All right, let's talk about Caleb Williams at USC. Nothing really I want to touch on there besides the fact he should light it up again. But a quarterback that I do want to talk about is the opposite quarterback on the other sideline. That's Chevan Cordeiro, excuse me. Again, a lot of the talk's going to be about Williams, but Cordeiro is maybe the top returning quarterback in the Mountain West. Probably is, right? 23 touchdowns, 6 picks. He's a cat to watch if you like quarterback play. So I'm not saying they're going to keep it close, but if they do, or if they're in striking distance, it's probably going to be because Cordeiro is having a good game. So watch Cordeiro for San Jose State. Another guy I want to touch on, or 2 guys I want to talk about actually in this game is Braden Shager from Hawaii and AJ Swan from Vanderbilt. This could be the funnest game to watch this weekend, right? You have Hawaii, who I think is going to take a next step and take that next step and compete this season more than what they did last year. I think they're building and they got a good program. We had their director of player personnel on a few months ago, and he was awesome. And he just was, said some encouraging things about the team and Braden Shager specifically. And again, they're playing AJ Swan, quarterback from Vanderbilt. But Shager's a guy who he's getting some more recognition. He's getting some more publicity. I think he's an underrated guy who just to keep an eye on. AJ Swan, 10 touchdowns, 2 picks last year for Vanderbilt. There's a lot to like about Swann and what he showed last year. And for Vandy to have the year they want to have, Swann's going to have a big season. It starts with Hawaii right now. It starts with him coming in and doing exactly what he did last year. Take care of the football, let your playmakers make plays, and do exactly what's being asked of you, right? So again, Braden Strager, AJ Swann, maybe my favorite quarterback matchup of this weekend. Or maybe it's this one. Maybe it's Grayson James against Hank Bachmeier, right? FIU against Boise State. Not Boise State. I'm so used to Bachmeier being at Boise State against La Tech. So we got Bachmeier at La Tech, the transfer from Boise State, who was inconsistent at times through his career at Boise State. Huge recruit, looking to get it started at La Tech. I think he's going to have a big year. Grayson James, another cat I like to watch. Started the majority of the time for FIU last year. Was up and down. I think his biggest thing is, hey, push the ball downfield a bit more, clean up some mechanical issues, and I think he's got a lot of talent, right? But again, that's a good game to watch if you're a sicko like me and you like watching these group of 5 guys, FIU and La Tech. Last one we'll touch on real quick. Gavin Hardison from UTEP against Zion Webb from Jacksonville State. Hardison's a guy who, if you just like pure arm talent, make sure you check him out. You probably haven't watched him play much unless you keep up the group of 5. But again, the UTEP quarterback, Gavin Hardison, been the quarterback there for the past few years. Then Zion Webb. This is going to be his 7th year in college football. It's Jacksonville State's first game as an actual FBS team. And I think he fits Rich Rod's offense perfectly, right? So that should be a fun game as well. So those are our week 0 matchups. Again, during the normal season, we'll go in more detail over the quarterbacks and recap a bit more. So again, any questions before we get out of here, let us know. But we'll talk about Devin Leary briefly, just because that was the first question we got from David Byers. Thank you for asking that. I know there's a way to put the question up at the bottom. I'll try to mess with that later. I apologize. But Devin Leary, I put a video about him maybe a week or 2 ago, probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, just about what his expectations are. And I think if you're a Kentucky fan, I think realistic expectations are for Devin Leary to be the best quarterback of the SEC. I've said that about several of those guys, right? But I just think it's a realistic expectation. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. But if you look at his 2021 numbers, his 2021 version, pushing the ball downfield, he had a TD to interception ratio of like 7-1. I think 35 TDs and 5 picks. I think that's 7-1. And so he was just doing his thing, right? Then he got hurt in 2022. He wasn't having the season he was probably anticipating having in 2022. But still, it wasn't like he was like off the rocker by any means, right? So he's back. It sounds like he's healthy. I think he has the potential to be the best quarterback in the SEC, or at least the top few. The SEC, I know I talked about the Pac-12 having the best top tier 1 quarterbacks, but the SEC, I think, by the end of the year, with KJ and Jaden Daniels, Joe Milton, Devin Leary, Spencer Rattler, I think whoever ends up being Bama's quarterback, I think they could probably be the best quarterback conference by the end of the year. But I still stand by the Pac-12. But back to Devin Leary, yeah, I think he's a guy who could be the best in the SEC, and for Kentucky to continue the success they're having, he is going to have to play well. And I think it's realistic that he plays better than Levis. I think he's going to take care of the football better. When you combine him and Liam Cohen, I think he's going to help put Leary in the position to succeed. So, all right, everyone. Well, looks like we only had a few viewers. So again, thanks for tuning in. That was fun. Again, we're going to do this 2 times a week. If this is your first time watching, thanks, and subscribe, like, all that stuff. I think we're going to have a former Division I starting quarterback do these things, do these lives with us when the season starts. May have several of them. Just from what we do, we're able to, we train a lot of these guys. We work with all these guys, so we're able to, get their perspective on things, which is really special. Having guys on that have been, in the fire, have seen live bullets. But this is your first time. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you're watching this version. You're right. Depends on the line. Yeah, it does depend on the line. You're right, Dave. Yep. It does depend on the line. Thank you. That's kind of you. Thank you for watching. But yeah, everyone that tuned in, thanks for watching. If you're watching this on, the recorded version or the podcast version, please subscribe. All that stuff, it does help. We'll have some cool guests coming on the show, and we'll keep the guests coming. It's probably going to be hard with the season starting because they're playing and coaching, but we'll have some former players on that will be able to enlighten us and keep us, within this quarterback topic. But anyways, everyone, thanks for watching. And again, if it's your first time, please like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. We'll see y'all next time. Let me see if I can end this thing. Peace.